crossing of the sea and the song of the sea, the Michamocha, the Israelites, singing, and the whole Red Sea thing. But we've already done that when it's in the order of reading the Torah. Look at all these people. Oh my God. And we also kind of reviewed it during our Seders. So I thought it'd be fun to do something different, which is do the Haftorah for this Parsha, which is the story of Deborah, and which is a wonderful story in the book of Judges. And the rabbis pair the Haftorah to have some kind of connection to the Torah portion. And in the Torah portion, it is the Song of the Sea that Miriam leads, and it's considered one of the oldest pieces of writing in the Torah. And then the Deborah section, there's also the Song of Deborah. There's two women singing songs of triumph. And so that's why they're paired together. But Deborah is a very unique character she's in the book of Judges, which is in the second section of the Tanakh. It's called in the prophets, but it's really before the actual prophets. And in the age of Judges, there was no king. There were some priests, no prophets that we hear of. And so everybody sort of self-governed in their tribes until there was a crisis, and then a judge would arise. And some of these judges were great. Deborah was one of the greatest, and some of them were terrible. And that's why ultimately the Israelites said, we want a king. We're sick of these judges. We want a king. We want a court. We want to be like other nations. And then we had our kings. This is before. And it's quite a dramatic story where the main characters are women. There's Deborah, and then there's Yael. And we'll see both of them are very instrumental in this salvation, this rescue, this redemption of the Jewish people at this time. This is before the kings. This would be in the time of like 1100 or 1050 BCE taking place. And some scholars say this is when the story of Ruth also took place, at another, around this time, even though, because she was the great grandmother of King David. So it's kind of in order of this, that it's before the kings as well. So we're going to read this really interesting story. I really like it. And where is it? For the prophetess. Okay. So we'll read and we'll talk. And then I have commentary as well on Deborah. I thought this would be fun. So who would like to start? Cindy, how about you?
And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died.
Okay, so let me just stop. Ehud was the last judge. So during his time, things went well. But then, and I love it says, again, did what was evil. What do you think that meant? What was evil, do you think? Penina, what do you think?
Before we go into this, I thought that Samson was the last one.
I didn't say who was the last one. I meant the previous one. I meant the previous one.
Oh, okay.
For this story. Ehud was the previous judge before the Deborah story. That's what I meant. Not the last judge, the previous judge.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you think? Let's stop here for a second. What do you think evil was, Ben? You're raising your hand.
Maybe broke one of the commandments.
Okay, which one?
1 of 10. I have a 1 out of 10 chance. How about thou shalt not murder?
Okay, well, I think, yes, I think they probably did, but Penina has brought this up like many times. This is her theme, that this was a transition period between idolatry and monotheism. And so I suspect that they started worshiping idols again. This was a big struggle for the Israelites during the, early time. All their neighbors worshiped idols. The idols are something you could see. God was, invisible, and most people didn't, you didn't hear from him. And the was very attractive, the rites, the rituals, the little statues or whatever. And archaeologists found, thousands of little idols in Israel when they've been excavating all over the country. So people were kind of going back and forth. You know what I mean? Polytheism was common in the rest of the ancient world. You have your God, I have my God. Okay, I'm visiting you. I'll take on your God. I mean, there was not this competition, whereas our God was, I'm the only one, and you shall have no others. And this is what was their problem. So
yeah, well, Samson was a proof of that he was attracted. He hung out with the Philistine the whole time.
yes, well, King Solomon, his favorite wife was Pharaoh's daughter, and he built her a palace and let her worship the Egyptian gods. So we know, and Michal, who was one of David's wives, they mentioned that she had a household god in her house, because when her father, King Saul, was trying to kill David, who was her husband at that time, she had him jump out the window, and then with no comment, the text says she put a god in the bed and covered it up so it looked like there was a person sleeping there instead of David. And then when they went looking for him, they pulled it back, and it was a fake under the covers, under the pillow. So it was happening for quite a while that people were doing both.
But on the other hand, Samson, when he stole the gate, the story that the rabbis that I studied with was that he was very curious about the metal, because iron wasn't apparent in Israel. It didn't exist. The Philistines brought it with them from wherever it is that they came. So his curiosity to the material, to the matter, was really that big. So it's kind of like funny that on one hand he was attracted to them because of the idol worshipping, and on the other hand, he was actually curious to see what it was made out of.
That's true, but we're not talking about Samson. We're talking about Deborah. Okay, so Cindy, continue.
And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor.
Okay, and sold can also mean delivered them into. He handed them over, basically. That's a literal translation, but he delivered them. And that was Hazor, and which was nearby. Keep going.
The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim.
Okay, Sisera. Okay.
Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and he oppressed the people of Israel cruelly for 20 years.
So it's interesting that Penina brought this up, that Israelites didn't have iron, but they had iron chariots. And this was a huge symbol of might, and 900 chariots with all these soldiers. And for 20 years, the Israelites were under Yabin, the king of Canaan, and they lived, Canaan is part of where they lived or whatever. I don't know what they're considering Canaan. I guess it was taking over this whole area, and they called out God. So what happened? Now we are meeting Deborah. Susan Ehrlich, why don't you read?
Sure, but I was going to say something. The other thing besides worshiping idols, there was chaos and cruelty. I mean, that's eventually led to God conceding they could have a king to put. I mean, that's how Book of Judges, I think, ends, and there was chaos in the land, and then they wanted a king.
Intermittent, because now we have Deborah during her time.
Right.
And it would fall apart because there was no successor. It just sort of, you're right. So at times it was chaotic, and at times it was organized. Okay, so why don't you read?
Now Deborah, a prophet woman, the wife of Lapidoth, a woman of lanterns or fire. So what does that mean? Lapidoth?
Okay, so just finish the sentence.
Was judging Israel at that time. She used to see.
So Lapidot can mean, there's a big discussion. Was Lapidot her husband? Was Lapidot her town? Was Lapidot, it means lanterns or it means fire? Does it mean a woman of fire?
Torches.
Another idea is it's the wicks of fire, that she was the woman who lit the wicks in the sanctuary, which was considered a big honor. So they don't know what she exactly what lapidot is. They never hear of this word again. So there's lots of
It
discussion
means a
about
torch, actually.
a torch. Yeah, a torch. Sorry. So but it's Eshet lapidot. It could be woman of or wife of, either
It
one.
could be also a very strong woman,
Very strong woman.
like somebody who is leading like a torch.
Yes. Oh, like the Statue of Liberty. Think of her.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, that's a translation of one of them. It's either a prophetess or a prophet woman, and the word is Isha Neviah, a woman who was a prophet. And this is one of the few prophetesses or women who are prophets, and that's her first identity. And then they say either a strong woman, a powerful woman, a woman from Lapidot, wife of Lapidot, whatever. And she was judging Israel at this time. Continue, Susan.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense of a lantern and fire. They're not only strength, but they're showing the way. There's some wisdom in that.
Exactly. They show the way, they illuminate, they
They
enlighten.
illuminate. Yeah.
Good.
She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the people of Israel came up to her for judgment.
So she sat outside under a tree in the country of Ephraim, which is the tribe of Ephraim. Ephraim, I think, was pretty close to Judah, which was Jerusalem, so it was nearby. Okay, so here's my next question for you. Why did she sit outside under a tree? Why did she sit outside, do you think? That's an interesting.
If people are going to come to her, it's easier than knocking on her door in a house, I guess. She's more accessible in the outdoors. And a palm gives her shade. And outside, she may have been, I hear the hills of Ephraim, that it's pretty, and she can judge them in the open. And I just think it's, they're not knocking on her door or her apartment building or her condo. They're coming to her in the open.
Any other ideas? Any other possibilities? Yes, I agree with you. Any other ideas of why she would do it outside under a tree?
Well, just to follow up on what Susan said, I think outside in the public square, then there's no secrets, no behind closed doors.
No bribes, no bribes, no, favoritism. Everybody could watch her be a judge. Doug, did you want to say something, Douglas?
Maybe she had studied Buddha, who also sat under a tree.
Well, maybe he studied her since she was 600 years before Buddha. Also, I wonder, it's also modesty that a woman is not alone with a man. She's out, there's no, possibility of anything, any accusation of any sexuality or whatever, that she's outside in the open, also for modesty. There's this famous story about this Hasidic woman, Hasidic rabbi in the 18th century named Hannah Rachel Verbermacher, who had her own, she had her own disciples, but she sat in her little house in the forest, and she sat by the window, and the people came and sat outside, and she stayed inside, and they talked through the window for this idea of modesty and openness and separate. Of course, this was Hasidic, so there was much more of this, concern than of separation of male and female. But we know, imagine that people were very open-minded. There was no problem that she was a woman. She judged. People came to her. There's no one had a problem with the fact that Deborah, the judge of the time, Devorah, was a woman. In fact, she was admired and people came to her. Okay, so now, not only for judgment, we'll see what else they come to her for. Okay, let's see. Who would like to read? Ben, you want to read? Hold on.
She sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam from Kedesh and
Kedesh
Naphtali,
Naphtali,
and said to him, He has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of
Zebulun.
Zebulun.
Okay, so let's start. First of all, the name Barak means lightning. Barack Obama, maybe his name came from this Barak. This is the only Barak, I think, in the whole Bible. And there's also a suggestion by the rabbis who couldn't imagine that she was unmarried or she was her own woman, that they said, oh, Lapidot and Barak is the same thing, you know, a lantern and a lightning. So they tried to say that she was married, but I don't think they were married at all because the way she talks to him. And then she says, take 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun. So these are the different tribes. There were 12 tribes in Israel. So it's like saying, take some from Massachusetts and some from Pennsylvania. That's who you're these are going to be your fighters. Go ahead.
And they will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand.
So she's saying, didn't God say this? Now, I don't know if this is the first time she's prophesying and it's kind of a rhetorical thing that's saying God commanded you, or she's told them this before. And I can't remember who told me this. It might actually have been Penina, that to go on a mountain would make it difficult for the chariots to attack, because they would have to come up the mountain, which would not be easy with chariots, whereas the Israelites are on the top coming down would be a better attack strategy. So there's something military in what Deborah is suggesting. So she calls him, she says, get me the general of the army, and she gives him this command. And what does he say? Okay. Why don't you read, Douglas?
By the way, they invented a new rifle in Israel that takes place of the Uzi, because it has a way of looking of what's happening around the corner. And they called it the Tavor for the mountain of the Deborah went on, because of she was so brilliant in her strategy.
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, Doug, do you want to read? Are you there? You don't want to read?
I can keep going if you like.
Wait, yep. Doug, do you want to? Okay, go ahead and go ahead. Barak said to, go ahead. No. You're muted.
Okay, listen, I'm hard of hearing, so I do a lot of closed caption reading down there. So anyway, nevertheless,
Barak said right here.
Barak said to her, if you go with me, I will go. But if you not go with me, I will not go. And she said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman.
Okay, so thank you. He says, okay, what do we think about Barak that he says that? And what do we understand from her reply? She, what is he saying about her? What is he saying about her? I'm not going to fight unless you go with me. If you go with me, I'll go. And she says, okay, I'll go, but don't think you're going to get all the glory, because Sisera is going to be conquered by a woman. So what do we think about, why would he want Deborah to go with him?
Well, I think he has a lot of confidence in her. I mean, that shows it, and a lot of power, and maybe she's the prophetess, and maybe having access to God to help them along. So I I think it's a very telling and interesting statement, but he's also saying at the time, that, if a woman is going to be doing this, and that's not a great thing. As it turns out, there will be a woman, but it will be Yael, not Deborah, but that's another story. But
At this point, we think it might be her. We might think it might be her. What would be
Right.
another reason that he might want to have Deborah with him? Ben.
That she's a great leader and will inspire troops and help victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Merle, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm also thinking that because of who she is, what everybody else said, plus protection. That they're
God's
not going to go
protection.
after her, whoever she's with.
Mhm.
Because of
Or she's like a talisman, she's a symbol, she inspires. I think about
wrong.
when the Spanish Armada attacked England, Queen Elizabeth went down and she stood with the troops, and she didn't really fight with them, but just her being there meant so much in terms of inspiration and symbolism that, he's saying, well, first of all, let's take the psychology of this. They've been losing for 20 years. Okay. So I can't, even if he calls Zebulun and Naphtali and says, okay, men of Zebulun and Naphtali, we're going to war, they might say, forget it. We can't win. We've never won, but now he says, but Deborah, the prophetess, is coming with us, the judge. And they go, okay, well, maybe this would encourage them to join, to participate because of this powerful woman. Nina.
They had a plan. They had a plan. She sent him and his troops to the place where they were making the chariots. Actually, it says there. And the whole machinery area. And he was busy with them fighting there because the problem was that they used those chariots to go wherever it is that they wanted to go. So while he was distracting the chariots and destroying that area, she was busy on the mountain fighting to the ones who weren't on chariots, who were foot people who climbed up.
I think
So it was a
right.
split, how would call it? It was a plan to attack them on both fronts.
Right.
Where the chariots were, it says there, Haroshet Hagoyim. She literally sent him to the factory where they were making them.
I agree with you, but she must have thought of it because he was not going to go without her. He didn't have,
could be.
He had the might, but not the smarts.
Well, the splitting was a big deal. That's what makes the whole thing work.
Right. And also she, in a way, shamed him by saying, fine, but if you need me, you're not going to be the one. I mean, obviously the women are stronger than the men. So let's continue. And Karen, would you like to read? Hold on. Right here. Let's go down. Karen? Read? Okay.
Barak said to her,
Then Deborah.
Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called out Zebulun and Naphtali and to Kadesh. And 10,000 men went up at his heels, and Deborah went up with him.
Okay, continue. Yeah, go ahead.
Now Heber, the Kenite, had separated from the Kenites, the descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent as far away as the oak in Zananim, which is near Kadesh.
Okay, so the important thing about this, two things. Kadesh, they went to Kadesh here, and Heber had Heather. Interestingly, I mean, Heather means friend in Hebrew. The Canaanite, he's like, he's a different tribe, or he's not Israelite, but he lived there. He separated from his tribe, and who were the descendants. It's interesting that they call him not Yitro here, but Hovav. Yeah. But and he pitched his tent near these trees near Kadesh. So this suddenly in the middle of the story is about Heber the Kenite. And I mean, I always think that these stories here are like wonderful dramas or novels. So they're giving you a foreshadowing of something to come. Because why suddenly in the middle of this do we have to know that Heber the Kenite had a tent near Kedesh? And Kedesh is going to be one of the places of the army fighting. So we're going to find out what that means. Okay.
Susan, may I just ask about the Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses? Can you say something, why they bring him?
Okay, so for two things. First of all, Chovab, I mean, Penina, Chovab means like beloved, right?
Not really beloved. It's somebody who is in favor of something else.
In favor.
Like, אני חובבת אותו. I'm kind of like, it's like more like a liking.
A liking.
Like bringing him close, it's like a soulmate that you think the same, that you like the same things, חובב.
Okay, so you would say that Hever, which could mean friend, was an ally of the Israelites, and they call his father-in-law, Moses's father-in-law, Chovev here, which we know his name was Yitro. Maybe that was like a nickname, the one who had kinship, who had affinity.
Well, he actually started the whole judicial system. He
Yes,
gave Moses the whole thing. The man was smart.
That's right. So also shows that he was related to the Israelites, not he was close, like he wasn't an Israelite from the children of Israel, but he was a cousin, so to speak, because Moses'
father-in-law to Moses.
Well, he was descended from Moses' father-in-law. So I think we're trying to show in every way that Hever was an ally
to
the Israelites, and that he was had separated from his other bloodkins and was living among the Israelites, and his tent was there. And really, it's not about Hever, it's about Hever's wife that we're going to hear about, but we're learning the location that he happened to have his tent near where the battle was taking place.
Right.
So, okay. So, Aviva, do you want to read? You're being very apt, not showing yourself, but do you want to read, Aviva? No?
So a B is a V in Hebrew, right?
It's a V. It could be a B or a V. It is a V in this case. Okay, Merle, when Sisera? 12. Okay, you got it on. Okay. You're still muted. Okay.
When Sisera was told that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called all of his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the men who were with him from Harosh
Hagoyim
and Hagoyim to River Kishon.
And Deborah as Penina said, Haroshet means like
a factory.
Factory. So that's where they were
all. Haroshet is a factory.
The factory of the chariots?
Yeah. Well, was the Goyim, the non-Jew, the Jewish, non-Jewish factory, probably where they stored them, the parking, area, and where they made them, repaired them. Okay, go ahead.
And Deborah said to Barak, up, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Does not the Lord go out before you?
So she's giving him a lot of encouragement. Let's go up. This is the day you're going to win, and God is in front of you and leading you. Okay, Penina.
So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. And the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and all his army before Barak by the edge of the sword. And Sisera got down from his chariot and fled away on foot.
So exactly, they were coming up and they were coming down, and chariots of iron are heavy and they couldn't get up the thing. And he ran away. This general, this brave guy, he got down and he fled. Okay, one more.
And Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Charoshet Hagoyim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword, not a man was left.
So they killed everybody, this enemy that had been oppressing them for 20 years. And Cindy, did you read? I can't remember. I don't think so. Why don't you read, Cindy?
Yeah, I can read again.
Okay. Wait, who did not read? I can't.
I haven't.
Oh, okay. Oh, Jonathan, go ahead. Sorry.
But Sisera fled away on foot to the tent of Jael,
Jael.
the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite.
Okay, so Sisera went to he went to that tent that we talked about where Heber the Kenite lived, and he thought, Heber, not being an Israelite, did not have any kind of feud with the king of Hazar. So, and her husband, maybe he was neutral, maybe he was friends with everyone, we don't know, but he goes to the tent of Yael. And also, there's actually a debate, was Yael an Israelite or a Canaanite also? Like you said, no, she wasn't an Israelite, but really nowhere.
She was a Canaanite, I think.
We don't know. Okay, Jonathan?
And Yael came out to meet.
For 1 minute, excuse me. It's very apparent that they're describing tribes, this tribe and that tribe, to show you which mentality was at the time.
Right.
It was not still a nation. It was, again, tribes and tribes and tribes. And that's always a competition and always wars.
Well, there were not competitions between the tribes so much, but there were competitions with the outer tribes, the Philistines, the Moabites, the Ammonites, all that. Okay, continue, Jonathan.
And Yael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord. Turn aside to me. Do not be afraid."
In other words, come in. Stop your running. Come on in. Come on in. One more, Jonathan.
So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. And he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty."
Okay, wait, just one more because this is important.
So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. And he said to her, "Stand at the opening of the tent, and if any man comes and asks you, is anyone here, say no."
Okay, so what's going on here? What is Yael doing?
She's relaxing him and gaining his confidence.
And what is she giving him, Susan?
Milk. And milk is supposed to put you to sleep. It doesn't do it for me at nighttime, but they say warm milk is, calcium and you can sleep. So she's making him all comfy. She's covering him with this rug, which is a warm clothing and sleep, and and it's a tent and you're secure, and now you're going to get milk. And
he says, stand out in front and be a decoy. And if anyone says, "Is anybody here?" say no, send them away.
So he has a sentry as well. So
a sentry, and this woman, and she said, come in, turn aside, hide in here. So she saw him and she immediately beckoned to him and made him comfortable. Okay, Rebecca, get to read the coup de grace, they say. Wait a minute, I did it wrong. It's like share. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Share screen. Here we go. Share. Okay, go ahead.
So she opened a skin.
No, we did that. But go ahead.
Jael, the wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand. Then she went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground while he was lying fast asleep from weariness. So he died. And behold, as Barak was pursuing Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking." So he went into her tent, and there lay Sisera dead, with the tent peg in his temple.
Okay, this is the last one. Go ahead.
So on that day, God subdued Jabin, the king of
Yavin in Hebrew.
Jabin, king of Canaan, and the people of Israel. And the hand of the people of Israel pressed harder and harder against Haban, the king of Canaan, until they destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan.
Okay, so Yael, it's a very popular name in Israel. Yael.
A real
You think she
warrior.
had this plan from the beginning? Do you think she had this plan as soon as she saw him? What do you think?
Maybe.
Rebecca, you're nodding your head.
Of course she had the plan, because Heber was a friend or a cousin. They were cousins. Why would she go
to the Israelites?
Why would she go against the family or the cousin?
But it does say that there was peace between Heber and the king of Canaan. So do you think her husband would be in accord or agree with what she did? Do you think he would have been all right with that? Or Karen, what do you say?
I'm shaking my head at those days. Are you kidding? I don't think so.
So she was so we have two women who are very strong thinkers on their own, action. They took action. And this is the only time we hear about Yael, except Deborah wrote an incredible poem about her that we're going to look at. But this story is like a great story about these two strong women who basically saved the Jewish people, the Israelites. And a lot of people, think Judaism is sexist or very anti-women, but that's only certain more contemporary sects, I would even say. In ancient Israel, I feel like women had a lot of agency in certain places. And there certainly was no quarrel with a strong woman or a woman leader. We look at even our matriarchs, look at Rebecca, who made this choice to pick the next, leader, the heir to the Jewish people, and other women. So our matriarchs, biblical matriarchs, really show us that how strong our Israelite women were from the very beginning. Okay, so now I have who hasn't read?
Can I add? It's curious though, because he went to a tent that was set so far apart, so he must have seen it in the distance. Sisera, he must have seen the tent in the distance as the fight was going on.
Yes, but people may have known about the tent because we hear earlier on, this is where he lived. Was his tent. So it may have been known that this is where Heber the Kenite lived, Kenite. And I think it's interesting in terms of the narrator of the story, how they give the foreshadowing and tell you earlier, pay attention to this tent and why, because otherwise, why is it in the story? And then it's beautifully crafted, I think, as a story, the way it comes together. Now, I just wanted to share a little bit of, I have some information about Deborah, and then hopefully we can look at the poem she wrote, because here is commentary. Okay, Ben, why don't you read?
Thank you, Rabbi. Deborah is one of the major judges, meaning charismatic military leaders, rather than judicial figures. In the book of Judges' story of how Israel takes the land of Canaan, there is no extra biblical evidence for the conquest or other events of Judges. So we would be mistaken in assuming Deborah to be a historical figure.
Okay, this is a certain opinion. This is actually from Jewish Woman's Archive. So they say we're not sure if she really existed. Go ahead.
However, she is a key literary figure with a rich afterlife in Jewish interpretation. The only female judge, the only one to be called a prophet, and the only one described as performing a judicial function, Deborah is a decisive figure in the defeat of the Canaanites. This is a victory told in two accounts, a prose narrative in Judges 4 and a poem known as the Song of Deborah in Judges 5.
Okay, Susan, why don't you read?
Sure. Many scholars have argued, based on its linguistic features, that the poetic account is earlier than the prose version. And in fact, the Song of Deborah may be one of the oldest parts of the Hebrew Bible. However, concrete dating has proven slippery. So
Okay, and so interestingly enough, the Song of the Sea is also considered, which is the Torah parallel. It's one of the oldest parts of the Bible, and both of them are sung by women. And there is this tradition of women being poetesses and singers of victory songs, of songs of victory, of paeans, Paeans, songs of praise about a victory. It seems to have been a woman's profession, actually. So, okay, keep going.
So as the story opens, Deborah is already a judge, settling disputes brought to her while she sits under the plant palm of Deborah in the hill country of Ephraim. She is identified as Eshet Lapidot, which may mean woman of the town of Lapidoth, or wife of the man of Lapidoth, or woman of tortures, that is, fiery woman, or even pyromancer, setting fires. If Lapidoth is a person, he is an otherwise unknown figure in the Hebrew Bible. Some Jewish traditions posit that Lapidoth is another name for Deborah's general Barak, whose name means lightning.
Okay. Who hasn't read? I can't remember who would like to read. Somebody just start reading. Who would like to read? You won't do that. You guys are just not pushy enough.
I can read.
Most of the
again.
judges,
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Merle
Go
and
ahead,
then
go ahead.
Penina.
Sorry.
Merle and then
Well,
Penina.
most
No,
of the
you go.
judges are acknowledged as such after military victory. Deborah is called a judge before the battle, but the narrative does not include the story of how she became a judge, why she is called a prophetess, or the way in which God commanded her to begin the battle against Jabin, the Canaanite king of Hazor, and his general Sisera.
So it's interesting. Usually the person does something and then they're acknowledged. But in her case, she's already a fait accompli. We start in the middle of the story. This woman is a judge. This woman, is a prophetess. This woman is a military leader, and she's well known. It's like well known, which I know they say we don't know if she really existed, but I love when there's a narrative that starts like in the middle. To me, it sort of implies that people already know about her, that they know the backstory, that we don't, but the people who wrote it in the time, they knew exactly who she was and what was going on. So, okay, Penina.
It's not just that they knew who she was. It was actually the name that was given is that the people took advantage of the fact that she's a woman, so the enemy is going to think that they are weak, and therefore they'll take the steps that they did. The name Dvorah, it means like she bites, like she comes from nowhere. And then the word, and Yael is a baby, is a deer, is a baby deer. So it's somebody that's so unassuming that she's going to kill somebody.
Names. They're deceptive names.
So
I like
yeah,
that.
so they are telling you the story that those women were actually chosen because of that particular trait, that they looked that they are not non-threatening.
Not threatening, but yet powerful.
And yet, exactly. And by planning, the plan is what succeeded here.
Okay, read. All other judges.
Okay, where is it? All other judges in the book appear to be military leaders. So we can assume that, So we can assume Deborah is as well. The text does not describe her actually yielding weapons, though it also does not mention Barak doing so. And interpreters uniformly assume he did.
Okay, one more.
Deborah summons Barak to be her general, relaying God's command to take 10,000 men to Mount Tabor to begin the battle. When he responds that he will go only if she will, she agrees to go, but informs Barak that he will get no glory from the victory, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hand of a woman. Oh, see?
Jonathan, why don't you read?
This pronouncement is meant in part to shame Barak for his apparent cowardice, because he will not readily man up. A woman will get the credit for taking down the enemy general. The reader naturally assumes that the woman will be Deborah.
Keep going.
Sisera deploys his army against Deborah, Barak, and the troops near Mount Tabor in Galilee. Deborah announces to Barak that the day of victory has come and the Lord is indeed going out before you. Barak and his warriors destroy all the Canaanites except Sisera, who flees from battle and seeks refuge with a woman, Yael, who kills him.
So it's interesting. The two main men in the story, their lives are tied to a woman, each to a different woman. Barak's success is tied to Deborah and her leading, and Sisera's downfall is tied to Yael. So we have like the two main characters and these two women. And this is very rare in the Tanakh, in the Bible, that we have like stories about women being the heroines. I mean, there's the story of Judith, but it's not even included in the Bible. It's like considered the Apocrypha outside the Bible.
The Roman story, isn't it more? The Judith thing?
Well, it's, yeah,
With
but
the
it's,
head cut off of the
yeah,
scissors
but
or
it's a
something?
Jewish story.
Yeah.
And it supposedly took place during the time of Hanukkah, but it wasn't included
Oh.
for whatever reason when the rabbis were putting together. But we do have other women, Esther and Ruth, but no one's so literally powerful. I mean, neither Esther nor Ruth are judges, are prophets, are whatever. Okay, so now we
I
have,
think women has more patience, and if they plan something, it's kind of like methodical because they have the patience. Do you know that Yael, a female deer, do you know that when she gives birth, she left the baby in our yard. So I called the police and I said, what do I do with this? And they said, don't touch him. She'll come back for him. So when she came back 3 days later, she didn't go to him all the way. She stood on the corner and she waited till that baby deer in my backyard stood up on his forelegs and walked to her. Can you imagine the patience? Yeah. And
right.
that was, and it's real life. That's what they do that because they don't want a human or somebody to attack them while they get to the baby. So she stood at the side and waited, and he got up and he's wobbling on his forelegs and went to her. So I think the name that was chosen here are very significant.
I think you're right. Okay, you're right, actually, both of them. Now, here's the poem, and it says that they wrote it together, but they ascribe it to her, that she wrote it. And this was, they say, happened, she wrote this first, and then the narrative was written after. But there's more emotion in the poem than in the story. There's some emotion, but there's a lot more emotion in the poem. So let me see. Who would like to read? Cindy, why don't you read? Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. Then saying,
go ahead.
Then sang Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, on that day, that the leaders took the lead in Israel, that the people offered themselves willingly, bless the Lord. Hear, O kings, give ear, O princes, to the king I will sing. I will make melody to the Lord, the God of Israel.
To the Lord I will sing. Yeah. So immediately we know this is a song of praise, a song of gratitude, and there's kind of like a structure, it seems. First, I'm telling you, I'm going to sing to God and I make melody. So I imagine she wrote it and they chanted it or sang it or whatever. And they give God all the credit for a while. Then Deborah gives herself some credit. Keep going.
Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the region of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. Yes, the clouds dropped water. The mountains quaked before the Lord, even Sinai before the Lord, the God of Israel.
Okay, so this is referring to something that happened in the past, I think, just reinforcing God's power. We're sort of talking about now, this is like the bad old days, or what was happening now. Who hasn't read for a while? Karen, how about you? Okay. In the days of Shamgar.
In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Yael, The highways were abandoned, excuse me, and travelers kept to the byways. The villages ceased in Israel. They ceased to be until I arose. I, Deborah, arose as a mother in Israel.
So now, some rabbis say that she was bragging or that she had a lot of pride, but she says, I arose as a mother in Israel, that we were oppressed for years and years and years. People didn't go out. It was too dangerous. They stayed home. They stopped, living the normal life until I arose, Deborah, a mother in Israel. Okay, keep going.
When new gods were chosen, then war was in the gates. Was shield or spear to be seen among 40,000 in Israel?
Okay, so here's exactly what we were talking about. They were unfaithful to God when new gods were chosen. Then war came and we had nothing. We had no weapons. We were unprepared. This is all part of, I think, the punishment for what happened for the last 20 years. Okay. And just one more thing.
My heart goes out to the commanders of Israel who offered themselves willingly among the people. Bless the Lord. Tell of it, you who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets, and you who walk by the way.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean, do you think? Who has an idea what that means? Somebody.
I think these are, I'm not sure what it means, but it seems like these are the more elite. They sit on rich carpets and white donkeys. That sounds like an exceptional, not run-of-the-mill donkey. So maybe these are the more privileged and rich.
So we know they were fighting for 20 years. And she says, my heart goes out to those commanders who offered themselves willingly, who went and fought. And you rich people who were spared, you sit on carpets, exactly, white donkeys. I love it's very evocative. You who walk by the way, you who are just, in the marketplace, tell the story, tell what happened, Okay. Susan, why don't you read? To the sound of
musicians. So to the sound of musicians at the watering places, there they repeat the righteous triumphs of the Lord, the righteous triumphs of his villagers in Israel. Then down to the gates march the people of the Lord. Awake, awake, Deborah. Awake, awake, break out in song. Arise, Barak, lead away your captives, O son of Abinom.
Okay, so she's talking about now the victory march. The victory march, where people were playing, marching and singing and joyful. And Deborah, again, includes herself in this. She's not modest, so to speak. She's taking credit. Okay. I'm going to read this part. Then down marched the remnant of the noble. The people from the Lord marched down for me against the mighty. So then everybody came down to fight. From Ephraim, their route, they marched down into the valley, following you, Benjamin. That's Ephraim, with your kinsmen. From Achir marched down the commanders, and from Zebulun, those who bear the lieutenant's staff. The princes of Issachar came with Deborah, and Issachar, faithful to Barak, into the valley they rushed at his heels. Like, the valley of the 600. It's like this military poem, because we only have 4 minutes. Now, I love this. This is like a castigation. Ben, among the clans.
Among the clans of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. Why did you sit still among the sheepfolds to hear the whistlings for the flocks? Among the clans of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. Galeed stayed beyond the Jordan. And Dan, why did he stay with the ships? Asher sat still at the coast of the sea, staying by his landings.
Okay, so what she's saying is some tribes did not fight. Some tribes hesitated. Reuben, you just sat by your sheep. You didn't come. Gil, you stood on the other side of the Jordan because that's where they were located. And then Dan, that's another tribe there by the coast. And Asher is by the coast. You didn't come. Where are you? So she's kind of like calling out the ones who did not fight. And then again, she's praising, so Ben, keep going, the ones who did fight.
Zebulun is a people who risked their lives to the death. Naphtali, too, on the heights of the field. The kings came, they fought. Then fought the kings of Canaan. At Tanakh, by the waters of Megiddo, they got no spoils of silver. From heaven,
go ahead.
From heaven, the stars fought. From the courses, they fought against Sisera. The torrent Kishon swept them away. The ancient torrent, the torrent of Kishon. March on, my soul, with might.
So what she's saying is like, even nature was fighting with us. The stars were fighting with us. The river were fighting with us. You know, God was on our side. And Zebulun and Naphtali, the two brave tribes, the 10,000, they came and they fought. They didn't fight for money. They fought for what was right for the people. And because of them, you know, all of the natural world was on our side. Okay, and let me just read this. Then the loud beat the horses' hooves with the galloping of his steeds. Curse Meroz, says the angel of the Lord. Curse its inhabitants thoroughly. Meroz must be, you know, part of Canaan. Meroz, I don't know what Meroz is, because they did not come to the help of the Lord, against the mighty. So this is, I don't know, some reference to people who did not help. Okay, now, Rebecca, most blessed of women. Rebecca, are you there?
No, she's not muted.
Unmuted. You're muted, Rebecca.
Thank you. Most blessed of women be Yael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, of tent-dwelling women most blessed. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. She brought him curds in a noble's bowl.
So there in the poem, she didn't just give him milk. She gave him like curds, which is like cottage cheese, in a bowl, in a beautiful bowl. She fed him. So there's more detail here. I'm sorry, that's my phone. It'll stop on its own. Okay, keep going.
She sent her hand to the tent peg and her right hand to the workman's mallet, and she struck Sisera. She struck his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. Between her feet he sank, he fell, he lay still. Between her feet he sank, he fell. Where he sank, there he fell dead.
Okay, so it's very evocative, very emotional. She crushed him, she shattered him, she whatever. It's a dramatic poem. And you know, most people didn't read, so they're hearing the story in this poem. They're hearing this, it's like the Iliad or the Odyssey, you know, where you get to hear the event through this. That's exactly what it was. It was a tale of whatever. And then there's this amazing ending. Out of the window she peered, the mother of Sisera wailed through the lattice. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why tarry the hoofpits of his chariots? So this is Deborah now saying, okay, here's the point of view from his mother, from the Canaanite side. His mother's looking out the window and going, what's taking him so long? And her wisest princess answer, indeed she answers herself, have they not found and divided the spoil? A womb or two for every man? In other words, they're taking the Israelite women and making them captives or raping them. A womb or two for every man? Rape? This is what they're thinking. Spoil of dyed materials for Sisera, you know, beautiful cloths. Spoil of dyed materials embroidered. 2 pieces of dyed work embroidered for the neck is a spoil. So you're saying, oh, he must be like gathering all of his booty, all of his rewards, including raping Israelite women. This is from Deborah. So may all your enemies perish, O Lord, but your friends be like the sun as he rises in his might. And the land had rest for 40 years. Isn't that a great poem?
Sounds
Beautiful
like
poem.
Cool. You know what caught my attention? That they were looking for silver. They had mines.
That's right, but they didn't do it.
They were looking for metal in Israel. So it shows you it very much like today, that people actually go and invade places where they think that they can
Have
get gold, or they
resources.
can get gold mine and things like that. It's unbelievable.
I like that the ending is really from the point of view of this bloodthirsty mother of the general. You know, it's like, Susan, is your hand up?
Yes, I was going to say that's one of my favorite parts. That, you know, it's not like Mama, the loving mother. It's like the mother of James Cagney in White Heat. If any of you have seen that, the 1949 film noir, where she's the leader of a gang, and she's got control over James Cagney and doesn't like Virginia Mayo, his wife, because she's so pretty, but she urges her boys on. It was a gang. And there's a mother, I mean, as
Proud mother of this despoiler and this rapist.
yes. So I just think that, I mean, that's like a prototype, you know, a model of the mean mother.
Also, Deborah calls herself mother of Israel, and here's the mother of Sisera, and what a difference. So happy Pesach, everyone. Shabbat
Happy
shalom.
Passover,
To you
Shabbat
too.
Shalom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Happy
shalom.
Pesach.
Thank
Thank you, Rabbi. See you soon.
Thank you.